Members, we now move to the Trade Safeguard Measures Bill. When we were last considering this bill, we were debating Part 2. David Shearer had the call and has 3 minutes remaining if he so wishes. So no speakers on this? All right, we're on Part 2. This is clauses 26 to 31. The question is a Part 2 stand part. Dr David Clark.
Mr Chair, this part really addresses the miscellaneous matters, so I shall keep my comments necessarily short. But it's a pleasure to rise and support the bill. Labor, of course, supports trade safeguard measures. And as my colleague, Honourable Phil Goff, points out, it originated under a Labor government. And we want to build a future for all that is a kind of economy that works for all New Zealanders, a fair, just society where all can live in dignity, an environment that we can protect is something we want in a nation we can be proud of. Now, all of those things align with having these safeguards in place. There's nothing too controversial in that respect. We think that the Temporary Safeguard Authority being abolished with no compensation for loss of office put forward in clause 26 and following is therefore not something that particularly warrants a great depth of debate. The transitional provision, on the other hand, is noteworthy for the fact that I guess this legislation has taken a while to get through the House, and the existing Act goes back to 1987, I believe, and was subject to review under the Labor-led government and the wide consultation that went with that. And of course the bill, as we know, is a result of that work, for those who have just joined the debate. And it produces compliance with the WTO obligations, and it streamlines the process of responding to allegations of dumped subsidised goods on the New Zealand market, and something that I guess will be welcomed by New Zealand manufacturers across the board. I mean, it's pretty hard to disagree with that stuff. Now, the transition measures provision will be enacted to try to make sure that the necessary powers are in place, that this Temporary Safeguard Authority has all the powers that it would have as if this Act had not been passed, and how that all works into making I guess an orderly transition, the kind that we need as we shift from one set of rules to the other. The bill is timely because it's important that it comes at a time when domestic spending is constrained, that New Zealand has the right tools to protect its businesses from globalisation and increasing competition where appropriate. We've heard yesterday the fact that the non-primary exports are down. The government produced figures showing that the domestic market is booming, and part of that is, of course, to do with the earthquake, the rebuild. There are some positive news stories there for the government, but all the while, our exports in the non-primary sector, outside the dairy sector, dropped 6.5% in real terms last year, and that will be a worry for the government, whether they're upfront about that or not. That is a concern for any government to see manufactured exports dropping. The measures here, insofar as they protect against businesses losing out in the trade arrangements, have got to be a good thing. New Zealand businesses do need a fillip. They need the support that they can get, and particularly in a system and a regime right now where we know that those multinational companies that deal in New Zealand get away with so much. Google, for example, we know declares less than 5% of its revenues out of New Zealand for tax purposes. Those multinational companies have at their disposal the tools that enable them to leverage their advantage, their existing scale and so forth. And New Zealand businesses need to have the kinds of provisions that make for a level playing field, that ensure that trade is taken out and is undertaken in a way that's beneficial to New Zealand. Trade safeguard measures are something Labour will support, and so it's my pleasure to have had the opportunity to take a call on this. Labour wants to build an economy that works for all New Zealanders and a fair and just society where all can live in dignity, and this is a small step towards that. That's why I'm happy to support this bill.
Members called David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I began on this bill some time